there you are. Come and sit by the fire. There is a small story waiting for you tonight. You don't need to listen closely. The forest never asks for effort. If your thoughts wander, the forest will hold the words for you, carrying them softly until they fade into something more comfortable. Tonight's story is about an unexpected friendship, one that formed without plans or promises, one that grew simply because two beings moved through the forest at the same slow pace, and neither felt the need to hurry away. There are nights in the magical forest when I walk without purpose. Not toward a destination, not away from anything, just walking, letting the forest decide how far I should go. On one such night, the air was cool and kind. Mist lingered near the ground, curling gently round roots and stones. The stars were faint behind the canopy, their light filtering down in thin, silvery strands. I had been walking for some time when I sensed it. Not a sound, not a movement, a presence. It was far behind me at first, just beyond the edge of certainty. Each time I slowed, it slowed. Each time I stopped, it stopped too. When I listened carefully, I could hear the faintest shift of weight against the forest floor, slow and deliberate. I did not turn around. In the magical forest of Whisper Grove, some things reveal themselves more clearly when you allow them to remain unseen. For several nights, it was the same. I would walk a familiar path, and somewhere behind me, always at a respectful distance, the presence followed. It never hurried. It never tried to catch up. It moved as though time itself weighed heavier upon it. I began to adjust my pace without meaning to. My steps grew slower, my pauses longer. I found myself stopping more often, resting my hand against a tree, listening to the forest breathe. Each time I stopped, the presence stopped as well. There was comfort in that. Not companionship yet, just rhythm. One evening, as I rested near a bend in the path, I felt the ground shift slightly behind me. I glanced sideways, careful not to startle whatever had been walking with me. That was when I saw it. The slokin stood among the trees, tall and broad, its shape softened by layers of moss and bark-like skin. It walked upright on two legs, its movements unhurried and thoughtful, as though each step required careful consideration. Its arms hung long at its sides, heavy but gentle. Its face was simple and calm, with deep-set eyes that reflected the forest light like still pools of water. It did not look frightened, nor did it look curious in the way most creatures do. It simply watched. We stood like that for a long moment, neither of us moving. The forest seemed to lean in slightly, interested but unalarmed. Slowly I inclined my head. Not as greeting exactly, more as acknowledgement. The slokin did not respond in kind. Instead, it shifted its weight and took a single careful step closer. Then it stopped again. That was enough. From that night on, we walked together, not side by side, not even close, but always along the same path, always at the same pace. If I stopped, it stopped. If I rested, it waited. Sometimes I spoke softly, commenting on the night or the feel of the air. Other times I said nothing at all. The slokin never answered, but it never left. I began to notice something else as the nights passed. The slokin often lingered near a certain place in the forest. It was a small clearing, barely noticeable unless you knew where to look. The ground dipped gently there, forming a shallow hollow surrounded by thick moss and low roots. It felt like a place meant for rest. Each time we passed, the Slokin would slow even further. It would step into the hollow and stand there, its hands brushing lightly against the edges of the space. Then it would step back out and wait for me. At first, I thought it was simply habit. But habits, I have learned, often hide questions. One night, instead of continuing on, I stopped at the edge of the clearing. The Slokin halted a short distance away, watching quietly. I stepped into the hollow and felt it immediately. The ground was uneven. A massive ancient root had shifted over time, sliding down into the resting place and blocking much of the space. It was too heavy to move without effort, too awkward for someone with long arms and careful balance. The Slokin approached slowly and reached out, touching the root with deliberate patience. It pressed gently, then released. It did this again and again, each movement calm, never forceful. It was not trying to move the root, it was showing me. I rested my hand against the wood and nodded softly. "I see," I said, though the word felt unnecessary. Using my staff for leverage, I worked carefully, shifting the root inch by inch. I did not rush. The forest does not like haste. When the root finally moved enough to clear the hollow, I stepped back and let the Slokin approach. It lowered itself into the space slowly, settling its weight into the moss. For the first time since I had known it, the Slokin did not rise again immediately. It rested. We stayed there for a long while that night. The Slokin remained in the hollow, still and content. I sat nearby, leaning against a tree, letting the quiet settle around us. There was no ceremony, no celebration, just relief. When at last the Slokin rose and we continued walking, the distance between us had changed. It followed a little closer now. Not close enough to touch, but close enough to feel. I did not know then how important that would become. After that night, the forest felt different, not changed exactly. Whisper Grove rarely changes all at once. It settles instead, like a thought finally finding its place. The path beneath my feet remained the same. The trees stood where they always had, and the stars still found their way through the canopy in familiar patterns. And yet something had eased. The Slokin continued to walk with me on the nights that followed. It no longer lingered quite so far behind. The distance between us shortened, slowly, naturally, as though it were learning that being closer did not require urgency. We moved together in silence, our steps guided by the same unspoken rhythm. Sometimes when I paused to rest my hand against a tree or to listen to the night, I could feel the Slokin stop just behind me. Not crowding, not retreating, simply present. It was enough. The nights grew longer, and with them my walks stretched farther than usual. I did not mind. The forest seemed willing to carry me a little further each evening, offering gentle paths and soft ground beneath my boots. One night, however, I felt the weight of the day settle more heavily than before. It began as a familiar ache in my legs, the kind that comes not from injury, but from having carried oneself for a long time. I slowed my pace, letting my steps grow smaller, more careful. The Slokin mirrored me, its long limbs adjusting without effort. We walked like that for a while, the forest quiet around us, until the ache deepened into something heavier, a weariness that asked to be acknowledged. I stopped. The Slokin stopped as well. I rested my hands on my knees and breathed, letting the night air cool my skin. "Just a moment," I murmured, though I did not know whether the words were for myself or for the forest. When I straightened and tried to move again, my legs answered more slowly than I expected. I took one step, then another, and then I sat down. There was no alarm in it, no fear, just the clear understanding that I had reached the end of what my body would offer me for the night. I leaned back against the trunk of a nearby tree and allowed myself to rest fully, the moss cool beneath my hands. The forest did not react. It never does when someone listens to their limits. The slokin stood a short distance away, watching. I offered it a small smile. "It seems I won't be going much farther tonight," I said quietly. The slokin did not respond, but it did not leave. Instead, it shifted its weight, stepping closer. It lowered itself slightly, its large form moving with careful intention. I felt the ground tremble gently beneath its feet, steady and reassuring. It stopped beside me and waited. I tried again to stand, pushing myself up with effort. My legs trembled, then refused, settling me back against the tree. I laughed softly at myself. I suppose we all have our nights. The slokin tilted its head, watching closely. Then, very slowly, it knelt. I had not expected that. The slokin lowered itself until its shoulder was level with my chest. It did not touch me at first. It simply waited, offering its presence without demand. I hesitated only a moment before understanding. Carefully, I shifted my weight and rested my arm across its shoulder. The slokin was solid and warm, its moss-covered skin firm beneath my hand. It did not flinch. It did not rush. When I leaned further, it adjusted its stance, anchoring itself so that I could rise. Together, we stood. It took time, more time than most creatures would allow. But time is something the slokin understands well. Once I was upright, it remained still, letting me find my balance. Then, with gentle certainty, it took a single step forward. I followed. The journey back was slow, slower than any walk I had taken in Whisper Grove before. Each step required attention. Each pause was long and necessary. The slokin did not mind. It moved at a pace that made no distinction between progress and rest. We stopped often, sometimes to let my legs recover, sometimes simply because the forest invited us to. The slokin never released its support. When I leaned more heavily, it steadied itself. When I felt stronger, it allowed a little more space, always adjusting, always present. The path seemed shorter than I remembered. Perhaps it always is when one is not walking alone. At last, the faint glow of the campfire appeared through the trees, warm and steady against the night. The slokin's steps slowed even further as we approached, as though it sensed that this part of the journey was meant for me alone. I rested my hand against its arm. "This is where I stop," I said quietly. "You've brought me home." The slokin remained still, its tall form outlined by the soft firelight. The warmth reached it there, flickering gently across the moss and bark of its body. For a long moment it did not move at all. I lowered myself carefully beside the fire, the familiar stones and embers welcoming me back. When I looked up again, the slokin had stepped closer, just enough to stand fully within the edge of the light. "Thank you," I said softly. The words felt small, but they were the right ones. I would not have made it without you. The slokin tilted its head slightly, as it had done before. Its breathing was slow, deep, steady. Then, with an effort that seemed to surprise even itself, it made a sound. Not loud, not practiced, just a single word, shaped carefully, as though it had been waiting a long time to try it. Friend, I smiled, warmth spreading through me that had nothing to do with the fire. Yes, I replied gently. Friend. The Slokin stepped forward then, closing the last of the space between us. Its arms moved slowly, awkwardly, as though unsure of the motion. Then, very gently, it wrapped them around me. The embrace was careful and brief, solid and warm. There was no weight in it, no urgency, just presence. I rested my hand against its back. You are always welcome here, I said. You may walk with me again whenever you wish. There is no need to ask. The Slokin held still for a moment longer, as if committing the words to memory. Then it released me and stepped back. Without another sound, it turned and began to walk toward the forest. Its movements were unhurried, familiar, peaceful. The firelight faded from its form as it passed between the trees until it was once again part of Whisper Grove itself. I watched until I could no longer see it, then turned back to the fire. And the forest held on to that small friendship, the way it holds on to many quiet things. The embers glow low and steady beside you now, their warmth calm and reassuring. The forest rests easily beyond the circle of light. Paths wait without expectation. Trees stand quietly, holding only what they need to hold. That is the story of the Slokin, a friendship that did not ask to be named, and yet found a name all the same. I'll stay here a while longer, tending the fire, listening to Whisper Grove as it settles into sleep. You are safe to rest. Good night, my friend. May you always find help when you need it, and may you always know when to offer it in return.